Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of HeavyTek, and today we're going to see if cooling an M.2 SSD is necessary. Well, I guess to some, it might be necessary to cool it. But what we're going to do is take a couple of cheap-ass heat sinks and see if it cools the M.2 SSD. That's what we're going to do today, okay? Right after this. Okay guys, welcome back. And we got a little odd thing that we're going to be doing today. We're going to be seeing if heat sinks, passive ones, will cool an M.2 SSD properly, I guess. The rationale behind cooling an M.2 SSD is when these things get hot, the transfer speeds slow down, so therefore it can affect the performance of the drive that you're using. So the whole point of a heatsink, like the same thing for your CPU cooler, VRMs, graphics card, is to pull heat away from the product so it doesn't degrade performance or damage components. So today we're gonna take three coolers that I bought from Amazon. They're gonna be two El Cheapos. They have no names. They're just aluminum heat sinks. One just happens to have a taller heat sink than the other. And then the third one is a active cooling SSD cooler from XPG. It's called the XPG Storm. By the way, all the links to all these coolers will be in the description, so you guys can go to Amazon and check them out if you want to see and try it for yourself. These are just DIY heat sinks. They come with no real instruction. The first one we're testing is just a basic small thin aluminum heat sink with the aforementioned parts that I had said before. The second one is a little bit larger, has taller heat sinks, a little bit heavier, definitely cut out of a thicker piece of aluminum with the same parts, thermal pad interface, and some rubber bands to hold it to the SSD. And then the last one is the XPG Storm that has a fan on it. It is aluminum heat sink, thermal pad to have active cooling over the SSD components. On the case of our test meal, we're going to be using a Corsair MP500 NVMe M.2 SSD. God, that's a lot of words for a title. That's a 120 gigabyte hard drive that we're just going to transfer a small amount of data on, just enough to get it hot, and so I don't have to sit for 5 minutes waiting to fill up the entire drive. It had a idle temperature of 59 degrees Celsius, and this was because with the MP500 it had a thin sticker on it, but it just wasn't a sticker. It was actually a real thin piece of copper with some thermal interface material, or maybe it was a heat pad. It was kind of melted. Now I know there are some SSDs that don't have something like that at all, so I decided to remove it. So like I said before, it had an idle temperature of 59 degrees Celsius. When we were done transferring the files, it did wind up reaching 64 degrees Celsius. So as you can see, it got pretty hot, especially from just idle temperatures to transferring of the data. This is also on an open air test bench and not side encased, so your mileage may vary. A ton of variables that I necessarily didn't account for, because you can't just do everything. A lot of cases are placed different. A lot of motherboard manufacturers put their M.2 in different spaces. So for the general consensus, this is what we're doing. It's on a PCIe riser card. You can buy something like that for M.2 if you don't have a slot on your motherboard. They're real cheap. They're usually anywhere from about like $7 all the way up to $30, depending on the features that you wanted to have. But you can get pretty cheap for a little NGFF M.2 riser card. Put your little M.2 slot on it, and then if you have any free PCIe slots on your motherboard, you can just plug it into one of those and it'll go ahead and transfer the data just fine. Okay, for today's first contender, Mr. Slim Shady Heatsink, the real thin small one, it started off with a idle temperature of 49 degrees Celsius, so obviously better than having nothing at all on the SSD. After the end of the data transfer, it got up to 52 degrees or 54, I think it's 52 degrees Celsius. So it was a slight jump. It didn't get that quite hot after transferring all that data to the SSD. On to our second test subject, Mr. Heatsink that's thick with two C's. We actually got a really good thermal out of it. On idle, it was 40 degrees Celsius. And after the data transfer, it was 42 degrees Celsius. and this can be contributed that it's a larger heatsink. The fins are taller and thicker, and there's a lot of space between the fins for air to travel through and go ahead and dissipate that heat. And on to the last one, which is the XPG Storm. It started off with a 49 degrees Celsius idle, and then went all the way to a steady 54 degrees Celsius all the way through the data transfer. So it's about the same as the first heatsink we tested, but by far the winner, which I'm really surprised is the second one. We're gonna call it Mr. Thick heatsink. That one performed the best, but that's not really a large surprise because it's a larger heatsink. It's going to do its job better. So saying that, there are more expensive heat sinks. There's one made by AlphaCool and Cryo with a K off the top of my head that make larger heat sinks to dissipate heat off of M.2 SSDs. You want to check out the video right here. Paul from Paul's Hardware actually is using the AlphaCool. It's called the Ice Block HDX2, and you can take a look at his video. But the point of the video today was just a budget option. If you have a case that doesn't have a whole lot of airflow, or you're really concerned about keeping your temperatures low without spending a ton of money, then these Amazon specials are great. You know, it's just a simple chunk of aluminum with some fins cut into it. Bare minimum, you could spend about, $5 to $7, and it's not going to do worse than your M.2 with no heatsink at all. It's only going to improve it. And if you have sufficient airflow, or the M.2 is positioned in a place where it can get airflow from like a fan or something, then it's going to perform even better. So I don't know, there's no direct percentages or hardcore actual data. It was just a simple, will it do better than nothing at all? And I think we found out that all these heat sinks do something better than the M.2 having nothing on it at all. So if you guys liked the video today, go ahead and hit that thumbs up. If you didn't like the video, hit that thumbs down. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. If there's anything you guys like to ask me or have questions about what I did here today, or there's something you like when I see it in the channel, go ahead and put it in the comments. And as always, guys, be awesome, be heavy. We'll see you on the next one.